Welcome to the Closed Podcast. We're here from the Real Deal Forum. It's Lee Bergstein and Mike Flynn.
Hey, everybody.
Sitting next to each other, live and in person.
With almost the same suit.
Almost the same suit. That's going to get tired as the day goes on. We probably need to come up with some new jokes.
I might lose the jacket.
We are here with Danny Pearlstein. Danny is a prior guest of Closed. We're really happy to have him back in person. He's a seasoned advocate for better transit and urban policy in New York City, serving as the Policy Communications Director at Riders Alliance. We're here to talk more about congestion pricing. We talked about it a little bit during the last episode. A lot has happened since then, and I think there's been a lot of data since then that's kind of borne out that congestion pricing really works. So for those who have not listened to the last episode, who don't know what congestion pricing is, maybe like a 1-minute overview of what it is, and then what some of the recent data bears out with respect to how it's working in New York City.
Sure. So congestion pricing is a cordon toll around the core of Manhattan. Cars are paying $9 a pop during the day to drive in the core of Manhattan, south of 60th Street, and that money is going to the MTA to make badly needed subway upgrades to the signals, new subway cars, station elevators, and so far has raised close to $160 million. Probably we're probably over that by now today. And it's a double or a triple benefit. So as we're raising that money, we're also speeding up traffic. Traffic speeds are up, somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 10%. And certain trips are dramatically improved. So wait times at the Holland Tunnel are cut in half. And
there's traffic at the Holland Tunnel?
Just a little bit.
No idea.
A little bit. I mean, there used to be a lot more. And thanks to the MTA and congestion pricing and the transit riders who won the program, there is now less traffic at the Holland Tunnel, making it easier to get out of New Jersey, which is, of course, New Jersey's big objection to the program.
Right.
But nobody
really wants to go to New Jersey anyway.
No, I mean, except for the people who need to get home, and they're saving a ton of time.
Our producers from New Jersey.
So people are saving a ton of time, not just in cars, but also on the bus, in particular express buses from the center of New Jersey, eastern Queens, the South Shore of Staten Island. People with miserable commutes, some of the longest commutes in the nation, are seeing several minutes shaved off in each direction.
That's incredible. So what about, I read an NPR article recently, and there was a lot of positive data that you talked about, some of it. And the counterpoint is there was a truck driver who was quoted in the NPR article. I forgot his name. And he said, it's so much more expensive now. It's very difficult for me to commute in and out. What's the counterpoint to that argument?
So congestion was costing New Yorkers, families and firms $20 billion a year. Just in lost wages, wear and tear, additional fuel. And so that savings is coming back. And that's why actually, although there are outliers, the most enthusiastic group of people are the people who pay the toll the most. So while the polling has moved in favor of the program, it's moved dramatically in favor, 2/3 in favor, in fact, among regular toll payers. And some of the biggest winners are not just individual truckers, but people with fleets. So, for example, a hardware wholesaler where his fleets are saving, an hour, 2 hours a day, time is money.
Right.
That's got to be a tougher thing to sell, I guess, than just, the average person that just sees that it's more expensive. That's an easier talking point for the opposition, I would think, than anytime you have to try to break down statistics or savings that not everybody can wrap their head around. Would you say that's the biggest challenge?
I think right. For businesses, they can look at the bottom line. They can see the dollar savings. For individuals, it has to be time.
Right.
And the clock doesn't lie, right? The people who are saving time on the express bus, who are getting home earlier, who get to leave for work later, that's something they couldn't get at any price. Now they can get it for $9.
Yeah, that's a great way to put into perspective for people, I think.
And I mean, the savings, right, for the money this is going to infuse the MTA with and already has is significant. You mentioned $160 million. I'm guessing there were targets in place when this passed. Are the targets being met? Are they being exceeded? What's the status of
So we are
money?
right. We are right on target.
Okay.
So the $15 toll.
Right on target with the government. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, I mean, the modeling is really, really good. And what's impressive especially is that, the modeling is good in a positive sense and that we're right on target. We're going to hit that $500-600 million this year. That was the estimate with the $9 toll. But at the same time, we're not anywhere near close to the worst scenario. And what I mean is that traffic diversions are not the problem that people feared. And so while the MTA will spend hundreds of millions of dollars to improve air quality in places like the Bronx, the Bronx isn't being inundated with additional traffic, which was the concern before.
Right. So obviously there are legal challenges in place. The Trump administration is trying to stop this. There's a May 21st deadline. Leave the court to the side for a second, although I do want to talk about how you think the challenges will be addressed by the courts. There's this May 21st deadline. How do you expect things to unravel over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks?
So the court date was moved up because the Trump administration, with its May 21st deadline, has proposed additional penalties if it doesn't stop.
Right.
But still, the context is this was the third deadline. If you postpone a deadline 3 times, it's kind of hard to take it seriously, especially when the deadline is premised, like this one is, on illegal threats. Right? The Supreme Court has firmly established.
What do you mean by that, illegal threats?
Sure. So the states have rights. And in this case, what matters is the federal government can't commandeer the state's resources, right? It can't turn, the NYPD into federal, marshals by fiat. It can't extort the states. And, there have been cases like this. The big one from not too many years ago is about Obamacare. Obamacare required the states to expand Medicaid. Obamacare survived legal challenge, but the Supreme Court said you can't force the states to expand Medicaid, and so some haven't.
Right. So it sounds like you are bullish on this surviving the legal challenges. Are there any potential obstacles that you could see the court grappling with when they're hearing this case or when they're making a decision?
So congestion pricing has been in court now for almost 2 years. And, at first we were concerned because there were some plausible arguments put out there. People like Randy Mastro, who's now the deputy mayor, he was the lead attorney for the state of New Jersey. And they had some reasonable arguments, 2 states fighting each other. That concerns the federal government. Arguments about the quality of the environmental studies. Those are plausible arguments. Those tend to stop a lot of development projects.
Right.
But those all failed. And so they failed in federal court in New York and in New Jersey and on an emergency appeal in Pennsylvania. So that's why the MTA likes to joke that they failed in every state east of the Mississippi. But the fact is, now that those arguments have failed, the Trump administration is using a completely different set of arguments. So those were plausible. These are outlandish. These are outlandish theories about the law. And this is a law, remember, that was passed in the first Bush administration. In the second Bush administration, they actually tried to incentivize New York. They offered $354 million for New York to set up the system.
Wow.
And Mike Bloomberg couldn't push it through the state legislature. So this has been a program with broad bipartisan support, and it's been incredibly successful in court.
Why, you might not have an answer to this because who knows what's going on in his head, but why is the Trump administration so against this? I mean, Trump was a developer in New York. You would think that this aligns with real estate goals. So what is your sense of why the administration is so opposed to it, other than just giving New York City a hard time? Is that the main purpose?
I think you can't underestimate the political value of giving New York City a hard time. If you're thinking about how to own the libs, where are the libs, right? There's millions of libs running around right outside this building. Own them.
Maybe not in this building, but
outside this building. And I think that's really important here, is that, taking away a policy that is succeeding, harder to do now that it's been proven so successful, but at the very beginning, taking it away is yet another loss for liberal policy, right? Yet another loss for a liberal governor. And I think there's a real desire on the part of friends of the administration to see the governor fail, to see her administration go down in flames in the face of any problem, like the transit crisis, the traffic crisis, just making her into a failure. And that has failed, right? She is succeeding on this. Now she's dining out on this. I think they thought that they had her. They thought that, she enacted the pause. She doesn't really want to do it. We'll give her an out. And then I think they felt they got burned because she was so enthusiastic once she flipped the switch and saw what it was doing.
Right.
He also, Trump I'm talking about, he seemed in this campaign more focused on, he seemed like he really wanted to win New York and New Jersey. And by win, I'll put air quotes up for people who can't see it. I think he meant like the suburbs and the exurbs. And I think he probably is thinking this is a touchy subject for them. They're the ones who are going to suffer. And it's like the everyman New Yorker, New Jersey versus the New York City people that are, the libs that he wants to own. So that would, I think, be his narrative that he's pushing.
I think that's 100% correct. And I think, you have to give the governor credit. She was perceptive. She saw it coming. I think congestion pricing would have been a big success last year, and I don't think it would have hurt anybody's chances in the November elections. But she knew that cost of living was going to be a huge issue in the election, right? We had no idea what a tidal wave it would cause in terms of, shifting the presidential outcome largely. But she knew it was a big issue. He had been saying as far back as last May that this was an outrage. Andrew Cuomo at the time was saying that we weren't ready for this. So I think you're exactly right. I think it's just that once the election occurred in the way that it did, we had been suing her. She also felt she had no other route to a guaranteed source of funding for the MTA. She was compelled to flip the switch, and automatically people started to praise her courage for doing it. And in the first polls that came out after the program started, the popularity of the program had spiked. Her popularity had spiked, and they were both dramatically more popular in New York than either Trump or Mayor Adams. And at this point now, her popularity is still up in the 40s when it was in the 30s. They've stopped polling the program because they don't see it as controversial anymore.
Right. So I've read that the support for this has gone up in New York City. The polling keeps going up. I think it's like 42% now in favor, up substantially from before. And then I think there's a bunch of like neutral. The majority are neutral with respect to it. Is this a winning issue politically nationally? So what does the broader public care about this issue? Is there just kind of anti-New York sentiment, so people are opposed to it because Trump has aligned it with like being anti-lib? Have you looked at that?
Trump has negatively polarized people against it, so Republicans are never going to support it. And elsewhere, people don't care. I go back to last year's polling when it was polling very badly. I think there was one poll, I think it was Siena at the time last spring, 63% opposed statewide. But again, 44% of people never set foot in Manhattan.
Right.
And if you look at the country, it's much more dramatically so. And so people don't care about it. If they hear about it, they think it sounds bad. But if they come here and they enjoy it, they appreciate it because it's not just the time savings, right? Traffic crashes are down. Honking complaints are down 70%.
When you're a tourist and you're trying to go to the World Trade Center on a weekday and your taxi cab's not stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic for an hour, you're going to be pretty happy about it.
100%.
Yeah. So before we let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about a real estate question. How is the real estate industry viewing this congestion pricing? Is there an intersection between real estate development and easier commuting? Has that been studied at all?
So the industry has been very supportive of congestion pricing going way back. And I think part of it is knowing the importance of the subway to, development and to values throughout the city. Also knowing just the sort of endless expense of maintaining the $1.5 trillion asset that the subway system represents and needing a diversity of funding sources.
Yeah.
We can't just tax any one group or thing or whatever. We need to do a bunch of different things. And of course, getting people to work and home more quickly makes, the central locations in New York City more accessible to more of the region. Location.
Yeah.
They're more valuable that way.
So I think I asked you this last time, but if people want to let their local politician, their city council man or woman know that they're in favor of this, how can people show their support for the policy?
Sure. I mean, everybody really that I've talked to has a story of a convert. And so I think, we're coming up into the warm season, right? The politicians are out there. We're seeing some primaries. We'll see the generals, right? Tell them you like it, right? You can tell them in person. And thank them for their courage, right? I think, there's some people who've been really outspoken in support, in Manhattan, Senator Kruger, Senator Hoylman, Siegel, right? Like those folks were with us forever. In Brooklyn, Senator Brisport, Senator Gennardis, who was a Riders Alliance member before he got elected.
Mayor Adams is here somewhere, so we can grab him and tell him.
Mayor Adams has come, Mayor Adams was a stalwart supporter. He got some cold feet. He's very supportive of again.
Yeah.
He's come full circle.
Well,
like a lot of New Yorkers, actually.
There might be reasons that we don't have to talk about on this podcast for why that took place.
No, but there's daylight between him and the president on this, at least for the moment.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your time. It was great meeting you in person. If people want to learn more about the policy, where should they go? What should they look at?
Sure. So folks can always come to our website, ridersalliance.org. There's also a fund transit and congestion pricing now handles are out there. And our partners, Regional Plan Association, has done some great work on this. And if you want to know who's paying the toll, the Tri-State Transportation Campaign has really drilled down into the census data to show how, with just a few toll payers and taking a small number of cars off the road, you can really transform the feel of a place like Midtown Manhattan.
And it's, I know I said goodbye, but it's really incredible how quickly this worked. You hear about policy taking forever to turn into tangible results. And, when I heard about congestion pricing, because I'm not driving every day, I figured, we'll see this bear fruit in 2035 or something like that. That didn't happen. I know that it's been percolating for a while, but once it was actually initiated, the results have been borne out pretty quickly.
And then, it's exactly what happened in London and Singapore and Stockholm, Milan, right? Like, people don't want to do it. They're hesitant to do it. They're going to piss a lot of people off, but people are so grateful for it and so pleasantly surprised once it's here. And immediately, bus riders and drivers started saving time. This spring and summer, we're seeing more service roll out on a few dozen bus routes across the city. And over the years to come, the subway's going to be more reliable, more accessible, and it's going to look a little nicer than it has in the past.
Well, that's a welcome change.
Yeah, for what it's worth, everybody I know who's come into the city when congestion pricing's in effect has loved it. So, again, what that's worth.
We're doing something special.
We'll end on Mike's optimistic note. Danny, thanks so much for being here, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Really appreciate
Danny.
it.
For more on all things real estate and the law, subscribe to this and our other podcasts. Follow Bergstein, Flynn, Knowlton, and Polina on social media. Subscribe to our newsletter and go to bfklawoffice.com. That's bfklawoffice.com to learn more.